Felicia, what do we want to get into today?
Let's get into some discussions around trust.
Ooh, is this
Just a
happening?
fun little thing to talk about. Do you trust me?
Can I tell you, I was like literally just saying to my delightful life partner that you are someone who I've said this to you before, I'm pretty sure, that like I feel like if someone was going to shoot at me, like you would take your body and just go right in front of me. You would literally take a bullet for me, I feel like.
I'm really glad that we'll probably never have to test that out. But yeah, maybe,
I
probably.
know, like I just feel like because you are such a good, like you've just got all that Quaker energy, even though you're not a Quaker, like, but you I
I'm
feel like
Quaker infused.
you're Quaker infused. Oh my God, that's amazing. That I feel like I trust you pretty much more than like anyone on the planet. So,
I mean, listen, right back at you. I mean, I'm joking, but we do have a very deep foundation of trust. And I think that's really why we're still in business and working together a decade later, a decade plus later since we first met. And, I want to talk about some research that I was telling you about this morning, which is actually a little older, but I think still really relevant. But before I even get into that, what just came to mind was, and I don't know if you'll remember this, but when we first started working together, so this would have been like 2013, 2014 timeframe, I just remember it was when we had decided to actually kind of like make a go of this thing that we were doing together. We weren't really full time on it. It was just a side project, but we were formalizing our relationship. And we didn't really know each other very well at that point still. And I remember you and I were at a coffee shop and we were kind of talking about trusting each other. And there was a reason why it was like some other person was coming in and being sh kind of shady or whatever. And I just remember sitting with you and we talked about how we trusted each other and we verbalized it. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I do trust her. And I don't really know why, but like I do trust her. And I'm glad that we're like that we seem to be on the same page about this. And that gut instinct really has not served me wrong so far, but I think it's just
same.
really grown a lot more since then. That was probably at least 10 years ago, if not longer.
And it's kind of wild considering that the two of us, and we've said this to each other before, is like we have evolved a lot since we met.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see how I think, have grown in this space and in our understanding. And I do feel very much like we've grown together, even with, 3,000 miles apart and a global pandemic and God knows like challenges to our business. Which is kind of gonna get to your point around the research. So yeah, it is kind of remarkable. Go us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Virtual pats on the
Yes,
back for both of us.
exactly. A little virtual
Um,
high five.
virtual high fives. Well, but let's talk about the data because there's one thing that maybe this is why we trust each other so much. It's that we are both big data nerds and we love
Totally.
some research. So, one of the things that I like to do every morning is I like to kind of start off my day by reading a bunch of research, and I get lots of stuff coming into my inbox. And so, this particular article, which we can put in the show notes, it's from Harvard Business Review, and it's actually a little older. So, it's from 2017. The article title is called The Neuroscience of Trust. And I was reading it. It came up, it was like a link in some other article because, you go down these little rabbit holes sometimes. But I was reading it and I thought it was really, really interesting. And I shared it with you because this is all about how the brain is involved in sort of engendering or supporting or not supporting trust when we're in working environments, especially. And so, what I'll just do a kind of quick skim over it, but basically, these researchers were trying to see if humans are naturally inclined to trust each other because of like a neurological signal or not. And what they found was that, again, this is like very much TLDR, like TLDR up the wazoo, but TLDR, when there are higher levels of oxytocin levels in your brain, you are more inclined to trust other people. And when you have less of those levels, and basically like if you're more stressed out, you are less inclined to trust people. So there's a lot more to it, obviously. And again, feel free to read through and dig into it. It's really interesting. But I thought that was so interesting. And especially in regards to our relationship to start off with, it obviously has big ramifications for the workplace writ large. But the reason that it kind of immediately popped out to me is because I was thinking about how we trust each other, as we just talked about, the fact that it's been so long, and the fact that I would say that today in 2025, we are probably at the most stressed out we have ever been. With the
Yep.
exception of maybe like 2020, early days, like
Yeah.
March 2020, we have had, and you know, the last 5 years especially have been a time of high, extreme high stress for us as individuals in our personal lives and in working together. And so I think it's really remarkable to see that we both still highly trust each other because I think it actually shows how much more work goes into having that trust than if we were discussing this back in 2016, right? And so that was something that I just was really kind of struck by because it, you know, like we joke about our relationship, but it is a relationship and it does take work. And if we're going to extrapolate to the workplace, just because you're a CEO or a leader or a manager, like there is still a relationship between people in charge and coworkers and colleagues and employees. And I think that it's probably a lot harder these days to create environments of trust because of all these factors, because of the fact that there's so much uncertainty, because of the fact that there's so much stress in the world. And obviously, there's a lot more to it, but I was just reflecting on how much harder it must be for folks right now, on all levels because of just the neuroscience of it all, let alone the fact that the world is burning. So that was my little 2 cents TLDR takeaway from a
That
2017
was
article.
That was, I mean, it could not be more relevant to today. I mean, and we're seeing it in all the headlines of, employees not trusting, their managers and not believing in corporations. And, we're seeing all of the trust eroded in all of the institutions,
Yeah.
really. And I'm sure it's related to the amount of stress that is being put upon so many people. So, and by the same token, perhaps people who are in positions of power not trusting people who aren't, right? So it
Yeah,
works both ways,
absolutely.
right? Because there's stress all over the board. So what I'm hearing is we all need to meditate a lot more. We do more trust falls. No.
We need to lower our heart rates and
Yes.
really get in tune with ourselves more. We need
Touch
to not
grass.
have the robots take over all of our lives. I mean, there's so many things that we need.
I know, it's so true. No, I love that fact. And it's a really good tie into the conversation that you're about to listen to with Rashmi because we absolutely talk about until the robots do take over, like we all still need to figure out how to work together. Like that is the reality. And so what we are working on is very much supporting organizations and teams in thinking about how to really be present and respond in an effective way to what is happening in the world and recognizing that change is happening at a faster pace than ever and we really kind of need to address that, so this is where we're at.
Yeah, another fun fact, and I'm not going to get this super specific because I actually wasn't thinking I would bring this up, but you just made me think of something. So I was just doing a workshop for a client last week, last Friday, and this exact point came up. So I will, if I need to, I'll clarify this afterwards. I'll put a link to this in the show notes as well. But basically, there was some research I found recently around change and how many average changes per year the average employee goes through. And they were comparing between, I think it was 2016 versus 2025. And so, would you like to guess in 2016, how many changes per year do you think the average employee went through?
Oh my God, I feel like I just looked at this article too. I don't know if you shared it and that's why it's in my head. It was like 21 or something, or
So it was actually two,
oh, it was
two
two and
changes.
now
Yeah.
it's 21.
Now it's yeah, I think it's 20. It's either 20 or 21. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
something like
so
that.
now it's 20. Let's say 20. And then in 2016 it was two. So the fact is that even if like you are in an industry where nothing has changed, which God bless, you're still doing your same job, you're showing up to work, it's all great, you're getting paid, all the good things, you are still like organizationally, we are going through more changes than ever now than we used to. And all of that takes work. It takes energy, it takes mental load, it takes actual workload, it takes like emotional showing up. So there's so much going on right now. And I think everyone is just like, we're all operating at a level that if we were to time travel back to 2016, we would not recognize ourselves because we thought that we were so productive back then. But like, watch out because it is just at a heightened level right now. So yeah, and Rashmi helps us talk about like what does the future look like and how does AI play into all of this
Mhm.
and what can we predict and what is happening. So there's just, we're in a period of massive change right now,
Mhm.
and we don't know where it's going to go, but
Mhm.
people like Rushmi and you and I have some thoughts about it.
We
So,
sure
yeah.
do. Stay tuned.